efficient way to drop loads of content into lots of people's houses at the same time. So in the UK we have 26 million TV homes, and in any given evening 12 million people will be watching Coronation Street across probably 5 million homes. So 5 million TV sets are watching the same programme at the same time. And if you look at the economics of broadcast, it's always good to remember that, I'll make the numbers up because I don't know the real ones. If it costs £1 million to broadcast Coronation Street and 1 million people watch it, it's effectively cost £1 per viewer to deliver that content. If suddenly, for a particular storyline reason, 10 million people decide to watch that TV, the fixed cost of delivering that television programme haven't gone up. And actually the marginal cost, the cost per viewer, has gone down by a factor of 10. So broadcast is a weird distribution mechanism in which marginal cost of distribution drops in relation to growth in audience. And you can't say the same for network. And so when we talk about the idea that Nick Negroponte espoused in his book Being Digital, which was probably 15 years ago now, and he talked about everything that was up in the air will end up down a pipe. He was talking about broadcast TV eventually going over a network. He's probably right, but it's probably another 15 to 20 years before that is economically viable and the network is sufficient that we can do that with the same economics as broadcast for a country like the UK. Because realistically, our internet backbone cannot support everybody watching Coronation Street over a network at the same time. It can support smaller groups, and the network technology is getting better. We'll see this autumn BT are launching a new type of streaming technology for their football. So it is improving, but at the minute,
Well, what about there's that multicast technology for the internet?
that's what BT is launching here for football.
It's been around for tens of years.
Yeah, but it hasn't been rolled out as a mass proposition to everybody. We must be careful not to take, just because there are technologies that we might be using in small tech-friendly clusters.
Yeah.
What we're really talking about is how do we create TV systems that can deliver a popular soap opera to every single home in the country at the same time on the same day, because that's the way TV works. So don't dismiss broadcast. And the other thing that's happening in the back of your head, when we talk about broadcast, we have to remember that actually broadcast file sizes are getting bigger. So we've already launched from standard definition to HD. Now an HD signal is 4 times as spectrum hungry as a standard definition signal, which means that if you wanted to put an HD signal down a pipe, you need compression that can deal with that much bigger file size. And already in television, everybody's getting excited about the launch to the next file standard, which is 4K, which is 4,000 lines. So theoretically, it's 4 times as big as HD. Although what's happening at the same time is that the compression technologies, the codecs that are being used to compress it for broadcast are getting better. So it's likely that a 4K broadcast will only be double the size of an HD broadcast, but that's still 8 times the size of a standard definition broadcast. So if you want Corrie in HD or in 4K, which is probably not likely, but football will be, it's likely for the near future we're going to be putting it up in the air, not over multicast, just because of the file sizes. So there is an arms race going on in the war to distribute technology between network technologies and broadcast technologies. So when we look at the TV industry, for the foreseeable future, we see an industry where set-top boxes in the consumer's homes will be a key kind of mediating device. And what we're beginning to see is rapid evolution of these set-top boxes. So, some of you guys are going to be playing Google TV today. That's a box that's in the mix of all the boxes that are evolving. But what we're beginning to see is some of these bigger old boxes starting to evolve as well. So these guys here, Sky, biggest paid platform in the UK, over 10 million homes. As I say, it's been a very old-fashioned broadcast device. We know that 10 years ago now they launched Sky Plus, their PVR. Their PVR has got bigger and bigger, so this is now a 2 terabyte PVR. It can store about 400 hours of HD TV or movies, so it's got a huge library already, and they're really just kind of ramping it up. So a 2 terabyte piece of memory is very interesting, and one of the things we're beginning to see is presentational innovation, because the things we've been saying for a long time is that the presentation of this stuff, this is only one evolutionary step away from a DOS screen, really. It's not great. We're beginning to see people innovate with how to present recorded material. So we were in Las Vegas in January at CES, and there's a company over there called Dish Network. And Dish Network have started to blur the lines between on-demand and recorded material. So they have a PVR like this, but they present it with pictures like an on-demand system. So if you record a whole series of Borgen or The Wire, as well as clustering all the programs together, it does what Apple does with iTunes. When you buy a CD and you put the CD into iTunes, it says, do you want me to get cover art? Can you grab the pencil? Do you want to get cover art? It goes and gets the pictures and the metadata related to the CD you bought. The new PVRs are starting to do the same thing. So you record a whole series of telly, and the PVR goes over the network and draws down the pictures and the metadata and the presentational stuff to present all that in a really cool way. So we're beginning to see a whole lot of innovation around presentation. And at the same time, as we've seen with Sky, they've added on demand. So this Skybox here, about a year ago, Sky started marketing out to their people to say you can now plug broadband into the back of the Skybox and they can deliver on demand. This thing here, for the next couple of years, is a proprietary protocol that Sky run. So this box goes over my BT broadband line, but it only speaks to a Sky server in the local BT exchange, and all this content is held in Sky proprietary format. So if we just go into there, it's got BBC content in it. It says BBC iPlayer. Truth is, that's not BBC iPlayer. It's something that's made to look like BBC iPlayer. All of these programs are sent to Sky in a disk format to be coded up currently in Sky format and then lodged onto the Sky server. So it's distributed over a private network. So this is the last hurrah of the old private network approach to IPTV. Now, Sky are rapidly evolving this thing. There's a new box coming out, we think in 2016, which is very likely to be all HTML presentation format and HTTP swapping of data, links to open web as well as their own servers. So this is their first shift. But what you have to think about is this is a company with 10 million subscribers. 10 million subscribers who pay them kind of on average £75 a month. It's a big, stable, revenue-generating, profit-making business. So they have to be very careful not to break it as they evolve it.
So it's a walled garden, they want to keep you in the garden?
Yes and no. It's a walled garden because that's the way they designed it 5 years ago. I think they personally would like it to be much more open because it would let them do much more interesting things, but they can't just flip it overnight.
Yeah. Is there some initiatives to engage with developers?
Well, they are. There's a huge team at Sky who work both internally and with developers in the market looking for the next generation of this stuff. So they're already working on the next iteration. But it's just a good example of when sometimes you see stuff in the TV industry and it looks really clunky and old. It's because they are trying to evolve an existing revenue-generating large business along this evolutionary trail. It's almost easier for it to start again with a VC startup, or to break it and rebuild it. But of course, that will be, from a revenue point of view, that will be cataclysmic. What you've got here is a very successful revenue-generating, profit-making media business that is working out how to evolve it without scaring the customers and breaking their boxes. So it's quite a challenge they've got. There will be a new box. There will be updates to this box. Now they've got broadband in the back, they can slowly evolve it. But it takes some time to go down that road. So when we look at the Skybox, it's got none of the kind of fun stuff we're beginning to see where they're linking into YouTube using YouTube's APIs and things. So I'm going to put Virgin Cable on here, which is the next biggest TV company, TV platform in the UK, and their box has gone slightly further down the evolutionary road in that it's able in the software in the box to integrate some web stuff. So they're able to plug into YouTube's APIs and integrate YouTube into the core TV proposition. So this box here is further down the evolutionary road for a number of reasons. So all the software in this Skybox is written in proprietary Sky software that they've developed in partnership with some big companies like NDS, who are part of Cisco now, and OpenTV, so some big old-fashioned TV software companies. This box here was developed by Virgin in partnership with TiVo in the US, which is why you've got a little TiVo logo flying around on this. And the software in this thing, and the presentational software at the front end, is written in Flash. Now again, no one here will claim Flash is the future. And again, this was based on a decision that was made a few years ago. However, what you've got is an environment in which they at least are able to open it up to outside developers, and I'll show you some stuff. And actually, Bill Scott is going to be here tomorrow. He's responsible for some of the apps, the open app builds that's occurring in here. So first off, there's a couple of things I just wanted to show you in here, which are further down the evolutionary road from the Skybox, and they're quite important. First off, a couple of things I just wanted to show you, and this touches on some of the philosophy stuff I talked about yesterday. So here we have another EPG, as we call it, Electronic Programming Guide. It's a kind of a basic list. However, there's a bit of information on here that you don't get on the Skybox, because the Skybox doesn't do anything this clever yet. If you look, there's this little indication thing here, this little C. What that means is this program guide is now able to show us where a program is going to be available in catch-up, which this one can't do yet. So they're beginning to integrate metadata from two sources. They're integrating the broadcast metadata that comes in broadcast signal that tells me that this program, MacMan, is going to be on broadcast. But they're also combining it now with metadata from the on-demand system, which tells me that when MacMan has finished broadcast, it's going to be dropped into the on-demand system in the box. So they're beginning to tie these two things together. This thing has also got one extra thing, which this was the first EPG in the UK to do this. Normally with a program guide like this, you can go forwards, so I can press right and see what's on later on. This one was the first grid in the UK that let me go left and see what was on earlier on. So I can go left on here and jump back. And if you see the menu jumps out, so now suddenly we're looking at stuff that was on earlier on today. And the reason they've done that is that it lets us jump into programs that are on demand. So this is an ITV show, and I know it's available as a catch-up show because it's got that little C icon on it. So from the grid, I can actually jump into and watch Yesterday's Lorraine, should you be that way inclined. Now that's a really important thing for the TV industry, because it comes back to this idea about whether broadcast is dead or not, whether broadcast is still important or not. And there's a lot of us who believe, and I am one of these, that actually broadcast will remain the centrepiece of the viewing experience for the mass audience. And now it's very important not to take your experience and that's always good, not to take your experience and think the rest of the population like that, because you are a very technically literate group of people. You are very interested in things like on demand, and in a way that the mass audience isn't. So these systems are built for large mass TV audiences, and what that means is that, good morning. Having a little run through the TV stuff here. You're with the BT guys, or you?
No.
No, you're. There's coffee on the table. Feel free to jump on the van. Yeah. So it's an interesting question. In when you're thinking about the future of TV, do you make in your head, is it a future where broadcast is at the core and all the fun stuff that we're talking about, like on-demand and catch-up and interactivity, are built around broadcast? Or is the future of TV a future where broadcast has died and actually we're building new on-demand interfaces or web interfaces? So it's all about which vision of the future you believe. This one here says actually that it wants to make all the jumps into the fun stuff start with broadcast. So if you want to find something fun and on demand from ITV, go to the ITV area on the grid and jump into it from there. So, and it's quite interesting because for the last few years, catch-up and on demand have been positioned in their design of all these things, like they are on Sky, as a different place. You can either go to broadcast, or you can press some buttons and go to somewhere else and find on demand. And what this system is saying is philosophically, it's very different. It's saying, actually, no, catch-up, on-demand content from the last 7 days, they think in consumers' heads that on-demand content from the last 7 days is linked in their mind to the broadcast channel. They say, I want to see that thing that was on ITV an hour ago. So if you want to see that thing that was on ITV an hour ago, go to ITV and go back an hour and jump into it from there. And so it's quite philosophically, it's quite a different way of positioning catch-up. Rather than catch-up is in the on-demand area, come out of broadcast, go to on-demand and find catch-up. What they're saying is, you're having a relationship with the broadcast channel, you can have a relationship with a live broadcast channel, or just go back an hour and find some catch-up from that broadcast channel an hour ago. So,
Can you just clarify the difference between catch-up and on-demand?
yeah, catch-up is a subset of on-demand. So on-demand content is a very wide cover-all phrase, which includes TV programs from the last 7 days, TV programs from a year ago, and some movies. So on-demand is a broad catch-all phrase. And in TV, in the UK in particular, we recognise the difference between a programme that was currently on all the last 7 days, a current series, and an older series. So you'll see that TV in the UK, the way it's presented through these systems, is very often split into two: catch up and TV on demand. I think you can ramp up the size of these hard drives really quickly. And what we've seen in the current generation of boxes, which we don't have one really in the UK yet for a year or two, but in the US with Comcast and Dish Networks and Verizon Fios, they've leapt ahead one generation of boxes. So as well as the boxes having huge hard drives to do the kind of thing you said, they also have between 6 and 8 tuners, which means they can receive and interpret 6 to 8 things at once. And so you can actually record 8 programs at once. Because one of the constraints with recording devices here, PVRs in the UK, is that they only tend to have 2 or 3 tuners. So Sky has 2 tuners, so people are always, you're recording 2 things, you can't watch a third. Or you start to record something and it says, oh, you can't record this, you're already recording The Simpsons. So you have to choose which one to cancel. So the more tuners you get, the more things you can do at once. So again, the hard drive becomes really useful. So I mean, your point is right. The Dish Networks box have done something which is very similar to what you just described. So on the Dish Networks box in the US, they have a tab here called Primetime. And which is a weird thing, you click on it, and what they're doing, they are, without asking the consumer, they are recording the best shows from all the major networks in prime time, and dropping them in the box into an area called prime time, effectively doing what you're doing, using the PVR memory to create a catch-up cache in the consumer's home without the consumer requesting it and without the agreement of the broadcasters. So it's a very interesting service. They happen to have also done one extra thing, which has landed them in all sorts of court cases. They have programmed the box to automatically delete all the adverts on these things, which we think was an antagonistic thing to do. It was the step they had made of automatically recording all primetime shows was quite a strong step forward in controlling the broadcast relationship. To automatically to program it to delete the ads seemed to be picking a fight. Yeah. So
how is it possible? Isn't the whole is just how they can understand when the ad starts and ad ends?
Because when a program is broadcast with adverts in it, there are some data triggers to say when an ad break starts and when an ad break finishes in the broadcast stream. You can read the data to see when the ad breaks are there and thereabouts.
And they raise the volume.
So yeah, things like that. So Dish Network are doing something to configure that, but they have moved down the evolutionary road to do something that as you described. Because actually, and then what they're doing is they're using the broadband in the back to deliver the metadata. So they have a catch-up area which is recorded shows, but it looks like that. So it doesn't look like a list of recorded shows. They're presenting it as a packaged and presented area of effectively an on-demand cache, although it's been done with a PVR. It's been done by receiver broadcast. Now, what we're waiting to see, there's 2 or 3 more technical iterations about to happen, because with this backwards EPG system, consumers love it. They understand it. They don't need to understand the tech. They just know, oh, if I need to see a show that was on an hour ago, I can just go left. So when you describe it to consumers, they get it straight away. They understand the benefit without needing to know how it happens. But the problem we have at the moment is it's been taking about an hour for a show to finish and for the systems to be ready to present it through. Now, clearly, lots of TV programs are recorded previously, like a drama, so those files can be made ready sooner. So what we're beginning to see is the amount of time it takes for a program to appear in the catch-up archive after broadcast, dropping down to almost zero. And we're just about to see a new technology which further cements this relationship between catch-up and broadcasting TV. And the Americans call it start over. We'll probably adopt the same phrase over here. And the idea is, if you say you come in, there's a television program you want to watch, you're very excited, you come in, but right now it starts at 10:30, but it's 20 to 11. So we're coming to watch the program, we've missed 10 minutes. So if we wanted to watch the show now, so ITV, we want to watch the show, we go in, it's 10 minutes in. The new system's got a little button here with a question mark. It just says start over. You go, oh yeah, you just hit the button and it goes to the beginning. Now technically what it's done there, it's jumped you into either a rolling cache it's creating using the broadcast, or a catch-up file if the program was pre-recorded like this one and available ready in catch-up. So without you as a consumer knowing, you're going to jump from broadcast into catch-up. And again, consumer trials in the States show that consumers absolutely love it. Don't care how it works, don't know how it works, it doesn't matter. All they know is, if you come in like now, it's 20 to 11, you can just go there and start the program over. So you've effectively jumped out of broadcast. Now, what they've done is they've disabled ad fast forwarding and things like that. So that they're not, you still have to see the ads on a commercial show and things like that. So there's some commercial decisions they've made around it. But it's an incredible consumer benefit. They really have improved the consumer outcome. So is that Matt? Do you want to just tell Matt we've taken his stuff to the other room? So incredible consumer benefit, but actually technically it's an amazing thing because we are welding together broadcast and on-demand systems to create a seamless outcome. So one of the real trends in big TV tech is to blend broadcast and on-demand stuff. Now this has been done using,
We have that in Portugal.
on which platform is it?
It's Zone. It's
Zone, yeah.
We have that. It's really great.
I've heard this. I need to come and see this because 2 or 3 people have mentioned that it works really well. So
it works very good. We just select a channel and then we can go to a very simple menu where we have the description. We can have a description. We can have the option of recording.
Yep.
Can have the option of starting from the beginning, as you said.
And consumers love it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, Matt, we're just talking about how a lot of innovations in kind of big traditional TV are all about blending broadcast with catch-up to create kind of a seamless outcome for a channel.
Yeah.
We're over here, we haven't got it yet, but we're waiting for one of the innovations that's rolled out in the States, which is start over. So you come in to watch a program, the program started at 10:30, it's now 20 to 11. On the new systems that are arriving, they blurred the lines between broadcast and catch-up. So when you turn it on, you're 10 minutes into the show, the little thing says, do you want to start over? And you press yes, please. And what it effectively does, it drops you into either a PVR cache or a catch-up show without you knowing as a consumer. So again, it's another technology that's being used to support and enhance the central role of broadcast in the consumer mix. What we're beginning to see is television systems arrive where the set-top box just points at the web servers of the different broadcasters. So this box here on Virgin, it's got one example of where that's happened. So a moment ago we looked at catch-up from ITV, and when I selected the catch-up program, what you saw was that it played it from a Virgin system. The menu that popped up on the screen was a Virgin menu. That ITV catch-up show, that Travels with Linda, whatever it was, that is held on a Virgin server and coded in Virgin code and delivered over the Virgin network. But what Virgin have been doing is they've been moving themselves down this evolution path and starting to incorporate the ability to have web triggers in their software. And one broadcaster has experimented with that. So if I do the same thing with BBC, you'll see we get a different outcome. So we want to see a program from BBC from yesterday. So I'm going to go backwards, I'm going to go left on the EPG. So this is from earlier. I can jump back to yesterday. So there we are, Air Hunters. I want to see the show. If I select it, watch catch up, that's what I want. Something different happens to what we saw on all the other broadcast channels with their catch up. In this instance, the box has got a web trigger, and as I selected that program, the signal went out the cable and jumped out of the Virgin cable at some point in the system onto the open web and has gone to the BBC server. So in this instance, in this one broadcaster, catch-up is delivered from the broadcaster's own server. So this is BBC server. So what happens is the signal goes to the BBC servers, and the BBC server recognises it's a request from a Virgin TiVo box, and it presents the version of BBC iPlayer that is relevant for a Virgin TiVo box in terms of presentation and button functionality and things like that. So we're watching, at this point, we've jumped from watching programs that were completely delivered by Virgin, the pay platform, to watching something that was delivered by the broadcaster. And so that idea that it's possible to jump from a closed walled garden cable system out to the open web, that's one example of how it happens, and there's some other examples. If I go back to the main area, I'm going to search for a show.
Good question. Was it the Flash player?
Say again?
When you jumped out, was it the Flash player?
On this one it is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What you'll see is a little YouTube logo sitting right in the heart of the cable interface. And this is another example of where they've woven some web capability in, and YouTube they're running quite an aggressive program of integrating with television systems. So if you are a developer of a set-top box or TV system, Google will open up their APIs to you and let you integrate. Sorry, YouTube will let them let you integrate their YouTube into your system. So if I'll show you an example. I'm going to search for TV programs. So let's just search for Coronation Street. So this currently is the Virgin search system. There we are, Coronation Street.
Is it server-based or local?
This is using data from a company called Tribune Group, who are independent metadata provider, and the search system is located in the box from a company called Think Analytics, and the data it pulls from Tribune Group. So we found Coronation Street, and when I go to the program, what you'll see is one of the things it allows me to do, if I want to, is go and look at YouTube clips. So within the cable system, I'm able to jump out onto YouTube. So what we're beginning to see here is the integration of traditional TV with web-delivered services, and YouTube is a great one to come up into TV because it's TV. YouTube is full of video.
What are the thumbs up mean?
Thumbs up is a TiVo construct for messing around with the recommendations engine. TiVo likes to think it can predict what it thinks you would like, and it has to learn from you. So one of the ways it does it, on here is a green thumbs up button and a red thumbs down button. So somebody clearly in my office thinks Coronation Street is great, however, I have the remote control. So now, we don't think Coronation Street is great. I would like TiVo's algorithm to know we don't like Coronation Street, so please don't recommend Coronation Street or anything like it in any of the areas where recommendations are available in the system. So that's what the thumbs up is. Now I'm going to select YouTube, because clearly right at this point here, we're still in Virgin's flash-based old-fashioned system. As I select YouTube, again, it jumps me out to the web. So at that point, we've jumped from proprietary versions of a flash interface out to the web. So this is the beginnings of this integration between old and new. Now, the TV industry has made a lot of these decisions about its own software for quality reasons. There is a general sense that this isn't a good enough TV experience, that we're seeing here. The same thing with BBC iPlayer. The jump to web is still giving us some speed and presentational kind of problems. And actually, even though the proprietary old-fashioned walled garden TV systems are kind of clunky in their own way, they get you to the small amount of content you want really quickly and fast. So there's always in this world, there's a trade-off between quality and kind of web flexibility at the moment. And that trade-off will go away. The distinction between those two will go away, but it's still a slightly clunky experience when you get it up onto a main TV screen. The other thing, which I think is just an executional problem, Virgin TiVo knew I was looking for Coronation Street from ITV, and it's jumped me into stuff which is actually a lot of illegal NIC stuff. So the TV companies at the moment aren't happy with what they've done with the implementation, but it's a design decision on the TiVo guys. They should have passed over a much better search string into the YouTube search to direct me to the official videos. So what ITV is saying is, in the middle of the Virgin search system, the official formal Virgin search, you're pointing people at illegal videos. This can't be right. So there's some design and configuration things to solve in that journey. The other people who are slightly nervous about what we've just seen are the regulators. So Ofcom, the broadcast regulators, are looking at it because one of the interesting things when we talk about this clash of cultures is that TV is a very regulated and controlled environment, and that consumers expect to be looked after. So we have ideas like Watershed in the UK, where you can't show programmes with sex and violence before 9 o'clock. We have regulated. This is a regulated environment. So Ofcom, the regulator, has a lot of say over what gets presented on here. But we jumped very quickly from a regulated environment to a non-regulated environment. And Ofcom are just concerned with making sure the consumer understands at what point they've jumped from a regulated, controlled TV environment into an unregulated open web environment. Because that jump, you used to have to move device to make the jump we just made. You used to have to go from your telly to your laptop to make that jump. And then your telly to your phone and your tablet. And then suddenly you're making that jump in the software. So that jump is, obviously it's very exciting because it talks about the integration of broadcast and web. But it's challenging from a tech point of view, it's challenging from a commercial point of view within the relationship between the platforms and the broadcasters. And it's also challenging from the regulators. So you can see Virgin is further down the evolutionary road than Sky in integrating some of these things, but it's still not kind of fully open. So I was going to show you, this is a UV box. Again, designed in Flash. Not a great decision, I don't think. It launched last year. They're already rewriting it so that it's going to be an HTML interface. But this thing has been designed so that for all the catch-up, it jumps out directly to the live web players. So all of these here are links through to the web. So this is the first box that was designed completely to be integrated into web serving from the main player. So if we select ITV Player there, it's going to jump through to formal ITV Player. Whereas so we've jumped out to the ITV server now. So this whole box is based around web integration for players. So just come back out of that. And what you'll notice is a very subtle difference. That says ITV, that says ITV Player. And the reason is that is ITV Player. That is their own server and their own player on their server serving you that content. This isn't. This is ITV catch-up content sitting on a Sky walled garden system, which is why that word player doesn't appear on the Sky system. They're two very, very separate systems. And this thing again has, where's the guide? Has a backwards EPG that all of the broadcasters now use to jump into their broadcast player. So we did ITV before, didn't we, on the Virgin one? If we do ITV again on here, I'll go left, backwards EPG, Victorious, there we go. So you jump straight from the EPG straight out to the web. So jumping straight into a web link into a player from the broadcast EPG is quite a big revolution for TV. So for the first time ever, we've opened up these grids and also made the connection from a program item on a broadcast EPG down to program item level.
Now,
there is the beginnings of discussions about whether a TV system like Xbox Connect or Samsung with its camera recognition, the brand new Samsung, which is one of the rooms, has got a little camera on the top, can see who's in the room and whether they should be using systems to recognise who's in the room. There are massive data regulation and privacy issues around that, and there's an awful lot of consumer pushback on a TV system looking to see who's in the room. So technically it would be possible to build a system using Xbox Connect or the Samsung system that is able to spot people in the room, see who's in the room, and marry that to an identity. I think we're a long way down the road from that being anywhere near a consumer rollout, and that it's not really a tech issue; it's more of a consumer adoption issue.
Can I just add to that Intel are planning to launch that in the next few months?
I know, that's Eric Huggins, he's an idiot. So, this is the brand new FreeSat box. And the brand new FreeSat box does all the things that the UV box did. So it's got a backwards EPG and things like that. It's got jumps into the catch-up players from the main, where is the grid, home. So we can jump into on-demand players like we saw on the UV box. So we have all the players. The big difference with this box versus that box is this is HTML5. So this is the first properly HTML5 television program guide that we've seen in the UK. And again, the difference between this box and that box is this one here uses almost exclusively off-the-shelf, open source, open internet standard protocols and software stacks in here. So it's used an HTML front end and a set of open European standard formats and protocols for bringing video and integrating with the web. So this really is the kind of the fourth evolutionary stage for TV. So you can see the way TV is going. The reason we're excited about it, given that we deal with the consumers and the consumer front end, is that the pace of change is picking up. So the original Skybox that we saw, the change windows you see in that are like 5 years. We talk in just to jump into evolutionary biology very briefly, because you need to. Evolutionary biology has two schools of thought. It has what's known as jokingly as the creeps and the jerks. And the idea is that there's two ideas. That one is that things evolve in a slow creep, smooth fashion. And then there is the jerk theory, which is that because of various factors, evolution happens in great big jumps. Now, TV has been a jerk industry in that it jumps in very awkward leaps forward in evolutionary stage. So historically, if you wanted something to change on your TV set, it took about 5 years of working it through the change. But so we work in an industry in TV where we're used to seeing one small change every 5 years, and then a massive jump into the next standard. Very slowly. The thing we're excited about this, getting to the point where we have an internet-connected box, a web-connected box with an HTML5 front end. Suddenly we're beginning to think that TV can move from being a jerk to a creep. And that's quite an exciting thing. We are anticipating this kind of interface with the connectivity will allow perpetual change and perpetual evolution rather than this great big kind of jerk movement from one evolutionary stage to the next evolutionary stage. And so that's why we're excited about this thing. Apart from the fact also it's got pictures and all those things we've never had until very recently on a program guide. We're beginning to see things like editorial recommendations popping into this stuff. So this is FreeSat making recommendations about, there should be some pictures there.
Slow internet.
Is it not, you're not connecting? I wonder, yeah. Anyway, so you get the idea. Now the problem is, everything I've shown you so far has been the TV industry managing its own evolution.
Got it.
On its own. But what's happened from the other side, coming out of left field, the device manufacturers, the Sonys, Samsungs, etc., have decided they want some of the action. So you could be happily watching your set-top box on your telly, but actually what Samsung has said is, hang on, we can do some of that. Why don't we build into the telly a whole software environment that's under Samsung's control? So if you are, like a lot of consumers, quite naturally just buying a new TV screen, going to to Currys or wherever and getting a new TV, you may have a set-top box already, but what you're suddenly doing is you're bringing together two different competing environments. So this is suddenly very interesting. So this is Samsung saying, actually, if you want to watch BBC iPlayer and ITV Player, use the TV screen because it has its own internet connection. But inside the TV screen is a set-top box that has also got the same things. So what we end up with is a very interesting environment where
Interesting or confusing?
I was being polite. Yeah. So let's pull up the guide in the little window. If I can get myself out of ITV Player. Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify. For the TV to work, it only needs internet. For all the set-top boxes, they also need to have some other means to connect to the broadcast.
Well, for the screen to work, it needs broadcast as well. So this has two feeds. This has a feed from the aerial on the roof, the antenna on the roof, as well as a broadband connection. So, and actually, the boxes they're sharing a broadband connection. So where are we? I just want to show you the strange situation where I have a set-top box plugged into a telescreen, and I've got ITV player, BBC iPlayer, BBC iPlayer. So this is the iPlayer from the TV screen. So what we have here is competitive clash. This is the two players, so the box. Now then you have to think, why would the consumer use one versus the other? What do we prefer? Now, if you're looking at it from our point of view, the thing that the box has, that the screen doesn't have, is PVR. And we spend a lot of time talking about the hard drive, the local hard drive in the box. The screens currently don't come with recording capability. And in all the consumer research we've done, the thing that consumers still tell us they love is the ability to record. However good the on-demand is, when you ask consumers what they like about PVR, is that it's theirs. The list of programs that's recorded in the memory is their list that they chose. It's only their list. So whilst they like on-demand currently doesn't trump PVR in consumers' minds. We talked earlier on about, in the evolutionary stakes, still having a PVR in someone's house is a very powerful thing because you can capture all this broadcast content. From a consumer point of view, they also still like it because it delivers them what they think is their own personalised control service. So unless one of these screens gets a PVR, then it's very hard to see somebody just using this and not using a set-top box. There clearly will be people. Now what the set-top box people want is they want you never to press the internet button. So what we're seeing in the set-top boxes is a wave of innovation where they're looking to see anything that's good on here is appearing in there. So we saw YouTube already on the Virgin TiVo box. YouTube is one of the things that works really well on here. So the set-top boxes are saying, okay, we'll get YouTube in our box. We need to think of as many reasons as possible to stop people wanting to hit the internet button on here. Because particularly if you're a paid platform like Sky, because if you're a paid platform and somebody buys a new telly, what you don't want them to see is the fact they have Netflix in there. You want them to buy movies from you. So Sky would like to make their service as attractive as possible with as many of these features in it. So I never think to hit the internet button because they don't want me coming out of here, seeing Netflix and thinking, I know, I'll give up my pay movies. I don't need my pay movies if I have Netflix on here. So Sky and the paid platforms in particular are very worried that smart TV can take these. So the great thing from a consumer is that we're seeing lots of innovation in an industry, TV, that was previously really slow to evolve and really slow to change. This is competitive pressure, and it's great because it means that Sky and Virgin in the UK, Comcast, etc. in the US, they are all suddenly innovating around their boxes. And that's great. So the combination of the two. Now, Matt's here from Google TV. We won't press him for secrets about Google TV and the aspiration. One of the problems we have with this environment from the developer's point of view, and it'd be good to ask Bill Scott if you're interested in this tomorrow, because he works in this quite a lot. In fact, he's done the All3 Media app, which is in here. One of the problems we've got is that every manufacturer has got their own proprietary operating system, which is slightly insane. So someone here is All3 Media. Maybe not. So Samsung, if you want to build one of these apps to go in Samsung, you have to build it into Samsung's proprietary software. If you want the same app to run on a Sharp or a Panasonic, you have to repeat the exercise. So something like ITV, which is the UK's biggest commercial broadcaster, any more ideas on how many of the 12 different connected TVs you guys are on? One. Yeah, they're on one. They're on Samsung only because Samsung helped them build it. It's so expensive to have to rebuild a separate app. And unfortunately, each of the separate manufacturers don't have enough TVs sold to make it worthwhile. The manufacturers are also making life complicated because they change the software every year. So ITV is on Samsung 2012 and 2011. It's not on 2010 or anything below it. We're waiting to see if they remake it for the new 2013. So one of the answers may be, and again, this is something to get Matt some coffee and see if we get some secrets. One of the answers that the industry is discussing is that instead of each of the manufacturers having their own proprietary software for a TV, Samsung and the others should look and see what they use for their other devices and say, actually, hang on, Samsung uses Android for phones, Samsung uses Android for tablets, it uses Windows currently for laptops. Why not use one of those on the main TV set? So you start thinking, actually, it would really help the manufacturers like ITV and iPlayer if there was one standard software operating system, or maybe 2 or 3 competing ones, for TV, and therefore everyone's beginning to expect TV screens to fall in line with the other devices.